Thank you very much, Gary, and can I extend a warm and sunny welcome to Solihull. You might think that you were coming to Birmingham this morning, but you're not. You're in my constituency of Solihull, and the sun always shines in Solihull, in actual fact. It's a little known fact. I have to start off with just an apology. I am not an expert. I'm between two climatic giants this morning, and my subject area is not the environment, although, of course, I'm passionate about the environment, as all Liberal Democrats are. Actually, Colin writes to me as an MP nearly every day, as chairman of the all-party parliamentary group on climate change. Colin, I just wish I'd read a few more of your emails, to be honest with you, this morning. I'd also like to just take up one or two of his comments. I'm feeling uncomfortably snuggled up to by Labour just at the moment, so if I can just put that one to bed, as it were. Perhaps that's not the right term to use, but never mind. Our situation is there are no deals, there are no pacts. We are in an unprecedented position here with the Liberal Democrats at the moment, and we're going for every seat and every vote. And we'll have to see what happens on the other side of the general election. But you, the voters, are the kingmakers. You will decide who gets the biggest mandate, and then whoever has the biggest mandate, whether it's Labour, whether it's Conservatives, or dare I even suggest it now, because it is a possibility, the Liberal Democrats, will have the opportunity to form a government. And how they do that, there are a variety of options open to them. They can go into a formal arrangement with one or more other parties. They can seek to govern as a minority government, or they can go into a less formal, looser arrangement. All bets are off, and we'll have to see how Nick does tonight on our foreign policy leaders' debate. So I just thought I'd clear that one up, Colin. What I want to do in the time available to me is to talk about the Liberal Democrat response to Copenhagen, and also just give you a little bit of a wider view on Liberal Democrat policy, although Colin's already done quite a good job, I think, on quite a lot of it. The Liberal Democrats consider that the Copenhagen conference was a deep disappointment in the battle against climate change, and many of the world leaders convened to discuss one of the greatest threats to our planet and our way of life, and came away, in our view, with very little to show for it. The lack of a legally binding treaty will have a profound and negative effect on international efforts to preserve our climate and halt the rises in average temperature that are going to have disastrous effects for all of us. During the conference, it became very clear to all observers that too much time was spent discussing protocol and waiting for all the big hitters to come on the stage. And I don't know about you, but it seemed to me like there was more discussion about who was coming and when than what the actual content of the conference was going to be, and what was actually there and up for discussion. And I think that's a real shame. And it just does show that the egos of our world leaders are far bigger than the problem that we're actually facing. So I think that was extremely unfortunate. And I have to say, Gordon Brown did get in there early on and try and move things along and make things happen. But as we all know, at the last minute, you know, the great performers. I was going to say pounced onto the stage. That's probably not very parliamentary, is it? But you know what I mean. They went pranced, we'll say, onto the stage, and nothing happened. And then this deal that Gary's referred to, all cooked up in a back room at the very last minute, which didn't really say anything, and they only agreed to note instead of actually enforce. So absolutely and deeply disappointing as far as we're concerned. We are a party of environmentalists. We're many very passionate people on the environment, and so what we do in the Lib Democrats, we're worryingly democratic. When we have our conference, we pass our policies. Those policies are voted on by the ordinary members. It's not staged, it's not sorted out beforehand. So it's quite interesting, you know, it's a lot more interesting than some of the conferences, because you really truly don't know whether your policies are going to get through. But our resolution on Copenhagen and where we go from there was universally adopted. So we recorded our deep disappointment that a legally binding global agreement on limiting the increase in global temperatures to below 2 degrees Celsius was not achieved. And we regretted the limited scope of the Copenhagen Accord, but did note that there were some areas of progress. The declaration of intent to enhance long-term cooperative action to combat climate change, and the agreement that developed countries should provide adequate, predictable and sustainable financial resources, technology and capacity building. What our policy that we actually wanted to then include in this resolution which we passed was supporting the 10-10 campaign to reduce carbon emissions by 10% by 2010, committing to reduce carbon emissions in the UK by over 40% of 1990 levels and by 1990 levels by 2020, and phasing out fossil fuel and industrial greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, with at least 75% of these cuts being achieved domestically. Calling for the EU to move unilaterally and immediately to an emissions reduction target of 30% by 2020. Calling on the UK government to take the lead in creating an international organisation with the authority to negotiate binding commissions for states to cut their greenhouse gas emissions, and make that organisation sit down in permanent session until we've done it, and then keep a watching brief. Calling for diplomatic cooperation to be deeper between the EU and Africa and the UK and all other Commonwealth countries, and so it goes on. A floor price for carbon in order to stabilise the carbon market and ensure greater predictability for the adaptation and mitigation derived from the EU ETS. And a regulator of the carbon market, because there's so much obfuscation in terms of the market. We need to have it open, clear and transparent. So our targets are, as Colin says, a lot more ambitious than have been agreed by the Labour government that we have at the moment. We want to set a new target of greenhouse gas emissions of an over 40% reduction by 2020 with no offsets, and 100% reduction by 2050 with only 10% offsets. To achieve that, we are going to meet the EU 15% renewable energy target and meet our own target of a 30% energy efficiency saving relative to 1990, and make sure that 40% of UK electricity comes from renewable sources, all by 2020. Introduce a UK emissions performance standard to ensure that new coal-fired power generation plants use full carbon capture and storage technology. And if we haven't got the technology and it's too expensive, well, tough. You know, we don't want dirty coal polluting our atmosphere, and that's the price of it. We've also recently announced the expansion of the largest expansion of the railway network since the Victorian era, and we want to undo many of the cuts that were made by Beeching. And that will be paid for by cutting funding from the major roads budgets. That's not maintenance of the roads. I think our roads are in a very poor enough state already. But things like motorway road widening and hard shoulder running projects, and redirecting it into rail. We're introducing a £140 million bus scrappage scheme to replace the old dirty buses by new low-carbon ones, and begin a 10-year programme of home insulation, offering a home energy improvement package of up to £10,000 per home, paid for by the savings from lower energy bills, and making sure every home is fully energy efficient by improving every new home, by improving the building regulations. And I know that's something that we have in common with all the other parties as well. We know that climate change is going to have the most profound effect on those who have the least resources available to deal with it. So in developing countries, we're going to help them by providing finance for adaptation, additional to the existing commitment of 0.7% of gross national income on international development. There's no point in just saying, oh, it's all going to come out of the same pot, or, you know, we're just going to cut the cake up, but we're going to cut it a different way. I think it's got to be additional. Committing developed countries to contribute $160 billion each year of the period 2013 to 2017 to assist with mitigation and adaptation measures. And at home, 2 minutes, oh golly, at home we're going to restructure our energy tariffs so that poor people who use little electricity, who pay more for their electricity than people who use lots of electricity, we're going to turn that on its head, make the first units of electricity the cheapest and the later units more expensive. And so if you want to burn lots and lots of energy, well, you jolly well will pay for it, and you'll be able to afford to pay for it. So I'll just finish really by giving you a quote. The Liberal Democrats have shown that the environment can be at the heart of policy making by including it in every section of their manifesto. Their environmental policies have been woven into their economic recovery plans, recognising that building a low-carbon future will create thousands of new green jobs and business opportunities for Britain. That's not my words, that's Friends of the Earth in their commentary on our manifesto last week. They weren't just quite as complimentary about the other two parties. In fact, you're going to hear from John Gummer in a moment. They've designated the Liberal Democrats as the greenest of the parties and the Conservatives as the dirtiest of the parties. So in conclusion, Copenhagen showed how far we are away really from being able to act in the interests of our planet. Self-interest rears its ugly head, and I do think that we've got a situation where, particularly with the likes of America, you've got politicians who are in hock to their constituents. And I think that Colin's too complacent in his analysis. I think that unless we actually see real leadership on the world stage now, we're doomed, really, as a planet. But the Liberal Democrats are up for it, and we're ready for the fight. Thanks very much indeed.